These are some of the greatest gardens in Britain. From a ducal castle to a garden once lost in time. From a modern masterpiece to a plantsman's paradise. We've searched out the finest in the land. Each has its own unique story to tell.
Oh, it's delightful.
Join me, Carol Klein, on a journey through the 4 seasons.
Woo!
As I experience a year in their lives. Meet the people who look after them.
This is the season which seems to be attached to my soul.
This is my midlife crisis bit, really.
Glimpse what goes on behind the scenes.
Come on, share your secrets.
Reflect on their magnificent designs and celebrate the plants that make each so special.
As I look through these massive pinnacles of flower, I can see the pinnacles themselves. Serendipity.
From up and down the land, these are great British gardens, waiting to be discovered.
I'm really looking forward to it. Bet you are too.
What kind of garden would you design as a setting fit for a castle as regal and spectacular as this one? Arundel Castle. Overlooking the River Arun in West Sussex. Dating back to 1067, this is the ancestral home of the Dukes of Norfolk. Its Norman origins can be seen in the ancient keep, while the impressive Victorian turrets and ramparts dominate the landscape. Today, the gardens include huge tropical borders, intricate knot gardens, copious topiary, fantastical architecture and theatrical water features, and all on a magnificent scale that attracts more than 180,000 visitors a year, drawn from all over the world. But it was not always the case. These pediments, grottos and huge fountains may look like they date from the 17th century, but in actual fact, most of them have only been created during our own century. This is a fairy tale garden that truly fits this magnificent castle. But how did it come into being? And what kind of person cultivates it, drives it forward, and finds a balance between the demands of thousands of visitors and the needs of a ducal family? My visit starts in autumn. Although there's a nip in the air, there's still plenty of spectacular seasonal colour, nowhere more so than in the stunning borders, which are still rich with treasures.
The castle and grounds at Arundel have been open to the public since 1854, and today they attract visitors from all over the world. Hardly surprising, since there's just so much to see. Just under 15 years ago, the current Duke and Duchess of Norfolk commissioned garden designers Isabel and Julian Bannerman to design an exciting new garden on a former car park. They were asked to think boldly, and they certainly did. Just look at this playful magnificence.
It's a tribute to the great architect Inigo Jones and his patron Thomas Howard, the 14th Earl, known as the Collector Earl. He travelled to Italy in the 17th century, being inspired by classical architecture and becoming one of the first great art collectors.
It's called the Collector Earl's Garden, and from its very inception, it was supposed to be dreamlike, and yet a very theatrical presence. It's full of obelisks, enormous gateways, and splashing fountains.
With Arundel Cathedral as its backdrop, it includes Oberon's Palace, an intriguing grotto where a 16th century water trick, a dancing crown, seems to float atop a jet of water. Incredibly, given the scale of this architectural staging, everything is made not from stone, but from green oak. There's also an impressive pergola and archways covered in autumnal Virginia creeper. And everywhere, views of the cathedral are framed. Today, the gardens are under the governance of one of the world's most well-travelled head gardeners, Martin Duncan. Such an epic enterprise might daunt some, but not Martin, who's going to give me my own private tour.
Just everywhere you look, it's so magnificent, isn't it? These huge, great big edifices, and couldn't be a much bigger building than that as a background.
We're just so fortunate to be in such a wonderful place.
Yeah.
If you think the transformation of this from a car park.
It was a pretty big car park, but it's given you the scope to expand. And
Nothing ever stands still in this garden, so constantly, every year, we're doing something different. When you have things like Oberon's Palace over there, it's just incredible.
Martin has worked as head gardener in many challenging locations. He can even count the King of Jordan as one of his referees. He's experienced in working on a grand scale.
it's like entering a jungle, isn't it?
It has that lovely feeling that you're actually in a jungle.
And surely you must have started with pretty substantial plants.
Oh, I
mustn't you?
did. No, we got in multi-stem Trachycarpus fortunii, and that gave the structure.
So this lovely big palm that runs all the way.
The palm gives the structure throughout the year, whether it be autumn, spring, summer, winter.
Because that's one of the things about a tropical border, isn't it? I mean, in the tropics, things don't change very much. They just get bigger.
They get bigger and bigger, which is what's happening here. And with leaf structure, you only need a little bit of colour to really make that colour have a huge impact.
I mean, they're very textural, but on a massive scale. You know, these, like, great hands, aren't
Hands
they?
coming out at you.
And then these lovely bananas.
Yeah, you've got the red banana there and...
And that is... Oh, that's a
it's
fantastic salvia.
Salvia van Houtii. It's just got that amazing colour to it.
It
Absolutely.
really is gorgeous. And pure autumn, don't you think?
Absolutely perfect colours for autumn.
You can really get a sense of the theatre that's been created here and of the scale and attention to detail of Oberon's palace.
I mean, when you look out here, the planting just integrates so beautifully with all the structures.
Oh, it's lovely for you to say, but that's...
No, it's true.
Hopefully we are creating that, because I think it deserves that. It's wonderful working on a garden which is so unusual compared to most gardens. Seeing people wander through into it and just go, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that's a great compliment.
You even had me speechless, and that's saying
Never.
something.
But not for long. You really do have to think big here. Even I might be stumped, faced with a garden on a scale like this. And, as it happens, we're off to the Stampery next, where I'm looking forward to continuing our autumn tour. Head gardener Martin and I are touring the gardens at Arundel Castle. Next to the Collector Earl's garden is a secret garden room that couldn't be more different and which reflects the design partnership between Martin and the Duchess of Norfolk.
So this is the famous Stampery.
Oh, it's wonderful. I love the Stampery.
It's your design, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Her Grace asked me to design it in 2012.
Stamperies draw their inspiration from the Victorian concept of growing ferns amongst upturned tree stumps.
This is an unusual Stampery, so it's a very quirky one and sort of much more contemporary. The traditional are more Victorian, tend to be in woods and darker areas, which are wonderful as well. And,
You've
beautiful.
also got rather a gorgeous backdrop.
Oh, the backdrop's amazing. and the trees, the liquid ambers, actually came from the wedding of their eldest son, Henry.
Oh, right.
Because they were used along the aisles for the wedding. And then
were
we
they?
planted them in here. That was about 3 years ago.
But they're perfect for this time of year particularly, aren't they? Because nothing else colours so well.
Imagine in 15 years' time, from every part of the garden, you'll be able to see this glorious colour.
You feel as though they'd just fallen down here, and the tree's gone and the stumps remain. What's great about it is that it's quite sort of secretive, isn't it, as you wend your way around?
Well, I just love the kids' comments, from being Harry Potter garden to the Hobbit garden. They absolutely love it.
This beautiful passion flower, this is totally hardy, isn't it?
Yeah, completely hardy. And actually, I have to cut it back a bit so we can see the stumps.
Yeah.
But it keeps on growing so quickly.
But you said tulips. You're actually going to plant tulips in some of these stumps.
Oh, absolutely. All the botanical tulips. We also have snake's head fritillaries and snowdrops. And, they make wonderful planting pockets, especially as they're completely upright.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing this all covered in tulips.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It is wonderful, but with 36 acres open to the public, it's big. This is very much a garden of two halves. The Collector Earl's Garden and the Stampery are part of the formal gardens, located beside Arundel Cathedral. The formal area also includes the English herbaceous borders, the cut flower garden and the organic kitchen garden. There's a rare lean-to peach house and vinery, originally built in 1850. But if you start your visit at the castle itself and look down from its walls, you could be forgiven for thinking that the gardens consist of rolling banks and wide swathes of lawn with impressive trees. It's a generous, open area that includes the American grounds and newly revived stew ponds, which Martin has recently transformed into a wildlife-rich wetland, complete with boathouse and outdoor classroom. And just in view of the castle, a beautiful rose garden completes the picture. The formal gardens are hidden away behind these high walls, but what treasures await in the castle grounds on the other side. And this really is a special time to visit them, with the many magnificent deciduous trees in their spectacular autumn colour. The grounds host a number of rare and curious trees.
This beautiful specimen is Paulownia kamakawii. It's from China and Japan, and it's absolutely glorious now with these great, bold, dark green leaves, which will shortly change to amber. It's loaded with fruit too, and you couldn't have a better backdrop, could you, than a castle standing behind you. But I can't wait until the spring, when it'll be in full flower. Just as the leaves begin to emerge, the flowers come out, great racemes of pale lilac foxglove flowers. What a treat, something to really look forward to.
A fine collection of trees studded around the castle give a broader and more restful perspective to the grounds, in contrast to the intricacy and enclosed feeling of the formal gardens. But before I finish my autumn visit, I've promised Martin and the team that I'll lend a hand with a task that unifies the castle grounds and formal gardens every April. It's the annual Tulip Festival, the impact of which I can't wait to see when I make my spring visit.
This area here, we call it the Labyrinth, and it's the first ever labyrinth of tulips. I've got my wonderful team here working.
Aren't they fantastic?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, the girls are planting faster than the blokes are digging the holes, though.
Come on, guys. The girls are catching you.
So in the spring, we're just going to see this in all its splendour. And will you be able to walk in between it?
You can. You can actually walk in between it, and it does look amazing.
It's going to be spectacular and all in keeping, eh?
Yeah,
Totally.
on the grand scale, it just works so well.
It's going to be one of the greatest tulip displays in Britain, but it doesn't come without a huge amount of work. But the tulips are not uniquely reserved for the wide open spaces. Even the Stampery is getting the tulip treatment, but with a twist. Daniela and Rose are using a special dibber to help plant the bulbs into the stumps, to avoid damaging bulbs planted in previous years.
So the tulip you're using is a little species tulip, yeah? Linifolia.
These are so much more fun as well. They're only about 10 centimetres tall, and it's just a little spark of colour here and there in the springtime.
Dainty. And watercolour too, bright red. Can I plant a couple?
Yeah, of course you can.
They're not tulips in the sense that we usually think of them, are they? They're tiny little bulbs, and they're really hard, aren't they?
Yes.
You just feel as though somehow, how is a flower going to grow from that? What's the idea? The more the merrier.
Yeah. As bright as possible for the springtime. That's what everybody wants to see when they come and see the tulips. As many colours as possible.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think you'll ever run out of room?
I doubt Martin will let us run out.
He'll just get more stumps, won't he? Yeah.
The gardeners here have undertaken a mammoth task in planting so many bulbs, and I'm sure the fruits of their labour will be spectacular. But for now, we've put them to bed for the winter, and all we can do is wait and hope that Martin's masterpieces come up to delight us in the spring next year. In the meantime, there's still plenty of autumn colour, particularly in the English herbaceous borders. This gem of a salvia has caught my eye. It's Salvia euloginosa, the bog sage.
How about this for a startling sort of blue? It's a colour you're really not expecting to see during autumn. It's sort of cerulean, the colour of a blue sky. Lots of small bracts all the way up the stem, each one containing a flower. That means when pollinating insects come along, lots of them can feed at the same time. Euloginosa simply means living in a swamp, and that's what this salvia likes. It loves to be damp at its roots. It won't grow to this sort of dimension if you grow it in a dry place. Mind you, the soil here has had so much extra organic matter added to it, it couldn't help but be big and beautiful. Easy to grow, very easy to start from cuttings. Just take tiny little bits off the side, nip out the top, remove the bottom leaves, shove them around the edge of a pot of gritty compost. Water it well and you'll get loads more plants. It roots really quickly. This garden is on a vast, elaborate scale. It's not the sort of thing that you could easily replicate at home. But the point is that everybody can enjoy what is a grand ducal experience.
When I come back, the gardens will be close to the public for the winter season, so I'll have exclusive behind-the-scenes access. I'm sure Martin and his team won't have gone into hibernation, though. I reckon they'll be busier than ever. I can't wait to give them a hand.
It's winter at Arundel. During the summertime, the whole place would be thronging with visitors. But right now, I've got the place to myself. Apart, that is, from lots and lots of very busy gardeners who are getting the garden into shape.
It's been a very stormy winter, and while many of us may have found ourselves dealing with fence panels half-cocked, flapping in the wind, Martin and the team are having to wrestle with the much bigger ramifications of a recent storm.
How tragic, Martin.
Oh, I know. Unfortunately, with these high winds, we do get a few fatalities of trees, which is incredibly sad.
It's very, very sad, isn't it?
That's a Quercus ilex, you know, the holm oak, evergreen oak.
Yeah.
And one of the problems with them is they hold their leaves. And so, of course, the winds then manage to capture.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine because they look beautiful all winter, but
Yes.
if a storm comes along, then they're much more prone, aren't they?
The one good thing is we will recycle this tree, and that will be into natural-looking benches for both the roundhouse down at our new project,
Yeah.
as well as areas around the grounds.
But this has been a particularly stormy winter, hasn't it?
Incredibly stormy, one storm after the next.
Yeah. And will you replant here?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, we'll replace the tree with like, as it is a holm oak sort of avenue here.
So you can get a lot done during the winter because you're closed to visitors, aren't you?
It's the most crucial time for any garden. I always say that a garden will show itself in the spring and summer, and if the team have worked hard throughout the winter, you'll get the result.
So I know this will get taken care of just like that, won't it? But I'm dying to see what's happening behind these walls.
Ah, we've got some wonderful things to show you.
Come on.
Well, let's hope the formal gardens haven't received quite the same level of buffeting by the winds.
In we go to the secret garden.
What does Pandora's box have in store? With the herbaceous planting now stripped back, the expertise and gardening craft used to create its living architecture is revealed. Substantial enough not to be lost in this enormous landscape.
I love the way you've cut these hedges.
10 years in the making.
Yeah.
But they're reflecting the wonderful cathedral spires. So what we've done is we've actually brought in the spires within the garden, and I think it works so well. It's so important to have structure in a garden, and that enhances the softer plantings.
The thing about all these architectural structures, the hedges, the topiary, everything, in the winter, they really come into their own, don't they?
They come into their own, and it's a wonderful garden in itself, just from the structures.
Yeah.
And then they enhance the spring and summer planting and autumn planting.
But this is their season, isn't it?
This is really when they come into their own.
From spires to portholes, Martin manages to incorporate the unexpected and add a sense of fun with all sorts of architectural tricks up his sleeve.
Oh, look at this. What a view. Isn't that beautiful?
One of our little peak holes that everyone absolutely adores.
I bet they do. I bet people are pushing each other out of the way to look through here.
Funnily enough, when I first cut the hole here and the other side, and then I thought, oh gosh, I wonder if Her Grace will like this, the Duchess.
Yeah.
And I called her up and she came down and said she absolutely loved it. So
Oh, what a good job, because
Well,
you couldn't put it back, could
not
you?
very quickly, no.
Although there's always quite a contrast between the formality of the gardens beside the cathedral and the open landscape of the American grounds around the castle itself. It's in the winter that this strikes you most clearly. Here, the effects are softer and more relaxed, like this huge box hedge, which Martin has pruned into the shape of floating clouds. This is a garden for visitors, for learning and inspiration. And today, I'm catching up with Daniela again, who's at the helm of one of their latest innovative and importantly sustainable projects, using my favourite type of gardener, bumblebees.
So, Daniela, you're the peach keeper-in-chief.
Yep.
Yeah.
I am.
And the beekeeper-in-chief,
Yes,
too.
for part of the year, yes.
Yeah.
You come in and hear them buzzing away in
Yeah.
the mornings. They seem happy anyway.
Right.
We've got plenty to do.
But these bumblebees didn't just fly in. They're part of a special delivery service, drafted in by ducal appointment to do a very important job.
The whole idea of this, these peaches need to get pollinated.
That's correct, yeah. So at this time of year, there aren't many flying pollinators about. And as they flower so early on in the season, we need a little bit of help. So I've got these lovely native bees. They're native to Europe. A terrestris audax is the name of the bumblebee.
That's a tail bumblebee.
That's it. I get a buzzing box that arrives with the postman, and I don't know what he thinks when he gets that every year, but they're bred locally, as they're native, they can be set free afterwards.
So quite simply, if they were left to their own devices, they're not going to get any peaches?
No, they do need to be either hand-pollinated, or you have to bring in the insects to do it, yeah.
It's a wonderful idea, isn't it? Because everybody is aware that bees are on the decline, bees of every sort.
Yeah, it's helping to add to the population of bees, definitely, and as they are a native variety and they can be set free afterwards.
And they can go forth and multiply.
Yep.
And meanwhile, you're going to get a wonderful set of peaches. But right now, I mean, isn't it just such a lovely scene, isn't it?
Payback for those bumblebees will be the chance to feast on the other side of the glass in the months to come. And after a mild winter, it won't be long coming, because it's not just the inside of the glasshouse that's showing signs that spring is just around the corner.
As you approach the gate that leads you through into the Collector Earl's garden, you come across this bank with the most naturalistic planting you could imagine. It's full of moss, of grass, of primroses. But the plant that first meets your eye is this beautiful little daffodil. It's Narcissus pseudonarcissus W.P. Milner. Narcissus pseudonarcissus is just the name for our native daffodil, but this is a particular form of it that's been knocking around for about 150 years. You can imagine somebody seeing it with these particularly pale lemon flowers, picking it out, and all these bulbs have increased from those original ones. It lends itself beautifully to a natural setting like this. And they've been planted in the most lovely random way, so they look as though they've always grown here. It's pure poetry.
Soon spring will be in full flow here, with Martin's crowd-pleasing Tulip Festival as its astonishing centrepiece. What a treat to look forward to. It's spring at last. The winds have eased, someone's managed to book us some welcome sunshine, and there are thousands of bulbs bursting through the borders.
Arundel is an amazing place all year round, but in spring it's just, well, I'm in seventh heaven.
It's showtime in the gardens. The spectacular Tulip Extravaganza is underway. There's a tulip bow tie, a tulip wedding cake. In fact, you'd be forgiven for thinking Hollywood film director Busby Berkeley might have sprinkled some movie magic across the gardens. I think it's fair to say that Martin and the rest of the gardening team certainly know how to put on a good show. Even the bulbs I helped to plant in the Stampery are in on the act.
The best place for me in the gardens in spring, especially when the tulips are in full flower, has got to be the Labyrinth. It's quite a stunning sight with the beautiful tropical borders surrounding it and the lovely water rill, which has pink impression this year. We've ended up with beautiful purple dream, the straight red appledorn, as well as the Thalia white narcissus. But we do tulips in a design setting like this, but we also do it throughout the landscape.
They certainly do spring on an epic scale here, and tulips are far from the only treasure on offer. Thousands of camasias are bursting through the grass throughout the American grounds, like a firework display of blue sparklers. Whilst tulips need well-drained conditions, camasias thrive in damp, heavy soil. Their blue spires are accompanied by the white discs of the poet's daffodil, Narcissus poeticus recurvus, which enjoys the same conditions. The latter brings perfume to the spring celebrations too.
It's a wonderful sight to suddenly see all these camasias here, and they naturalise so well and just fit in with the landscape. And then, of course, we've got this amazing backdrop of the castle.
But it's not all about bulbs. The gardening team has been incredible. They've created a new woodland area, complete with timber benches made from the home oak that blew down in the winter storms. A perfect resting spot to take in views of the castle. It's fair to say spring has well and truly sprung, with the deciduous trees in on the act. Back in the autumn, we looked at one of the many rare trees nestled in the shadow of the castle. Paulownia Kawakamii, the sapphire dragon tree. It's so rare that it's on the critically endangered red list. The spectacular bunches of violet foxglove flowers can be truly appreciated now, appearing as they do at the tips of the bare branches. And we're spot on with our timing to capture it in all its spring glory. Spring here has been exceptional and has certainly lived up to expectations. And it's whetted my appetite to see what Martin magic awaits us in summer. To say I'm in my element would be an understatement. In every direction, there are examples of a summer garden at the peak of perfection, all there to provide the wow factor.
The gardens here are immaculate, and they're just yearning to throw open their gates to welcome people. This ancient place has seen many changes, and whilst it's always been a family home, much of what is done nowadays is for the enlightenment and the enjoyment of its visitors.
And nowhere says bountiful high summer better than the rose garden, which has a fairy tale charm all of its own.
Apparently, during medieval times, this was a bowling green. And then about 18 years ago, the Duchess of Norfolk decided that she'd like a rose garden here. But since then, the whole place has been Martinised. He's given it a Martin makeover. And his emphasis is all to do with subtle colours, beautiful perfume, all the things that a rose garden really should be. The roses are a combination of true old roses and then some of the modern English roses that combine all those qualities of the old roses but continue to flower for ages. Roses like this lovely Madame Isaac Perret, renowned for its perfume. Look at these great big voluptuous blooms and with the most delicious scent. I mean, it's pure rose. The great thing about these English roses is they have all the qualities of old roses. They've got beautiful form, fabulous scent, gorgeous colour, but they repeat flower. This lovely pale pink one is Olivia Rose Austin, again a modern English rose. Just one of the roses which in future years are going to fill out, expand, and this whole garden, as you walk into it on a summer's day, is just going to be a symphony of scent and colour, fit for a duchess or for us.
Back in the formal gardens, the exuberant tulip displays of spring have been succeeded by the riot of colour radiating from the herbaceous borders and cut flower garden, all perfectly framed by structural yew and box hedges.
It's such a pleasure to be back, Martin, and the garden's looking absolutely superb.
Oh, thanks, Carol. It's wonderful to see you.
The weather's been very strange this year, though. What's it been like here?
Unbelievably strange. I mean, we've been having a really hot summer and we've had absolutely no rain. So it's been very early morning watering. I like doing it early morning and evening.
Yeah.
So it can saturate the ground.
Pointless watering at this time of day.
No, unless you absolutely have to.
So you must be pretty thrilled when you come to these borders because they are looking magnificent.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's what I like to call sort of soft English borders. Everything's planted in threes and swaves, and they're so giving because Alchemilla, you can use that in flower arranging. You cut it back and it shoots back again.
Yeah, exactly.
The same with Nepeta, Walker's Low, and they flow so well. And then the geranium Johnson's Blue is a stunner.
And do you find that carries on flowering?
It does if we do what I call a sort of Chelsea chop.
Right.
But it's a late Chelsea chop.
Doing a Chelsea chop means cutting back summer flowering perennials at the end of May, coinciding with the timing of the RHS Chelsea Flower Show. Doing this can extend their flowering season, but Martin gives them another short back and sides later on in June, helping to prolong their flowering season way into late summer.
So you've got to be bold, yes?
Yeah, absolutely bold, and just cut it right back to the new growth.
We're not having a race, are we?
No, not necessarily.
If you're going to do this in your own borders, cut back to where you can see signs of new growth. Martin's recommendation is to scatter a handful of bone meal to encourage new growth and to give the plants a really good watering. It's back-breaking work in the heat, but well worth the effort to prolong that flowering season. I'm sure visitors to the garden later in the year will appreciate our labours. I'm thoroughly enjoying my summer visit to the breathtaking gardens at Arundel Castle. In the formal gardens along Cathedral Walk, one plant in Martin's borders has caught my eye. It's certainly reaching for the sky, and the bees are loving it too.
Wow! This is Accion Pinna. It's a massive, massive plant and one of the most spectacular plants in the whole garden here, and that's saying something. It's actually a member of the borage family, and if you look carefully, you can see bees going in and out of these beautiful blue flowers. Now, it doesn't flower every year simply because once it's flowered, it dies. It sets some seed, scatters it around, and then that's it. So, although it's short-lived, in that short life, you couldn't have anything that was just more breathtaking. What happens is that seed will drop down, a great big rosette will develop during the year. Sometimes in that first year, it can reach this sort of size, really big and chunky, from a tiny little seedling in the spring. But it's not until its second year that it will send up this enormous spike of flowers. One of the most exciting things about it, especially just here, is that as I look through these massive pinnacles of flower, I can see the pinnacles themselves of the cathedral beyond. They're completely repeated through here. It's absolutely lovely. Serendipity.
The gardens here are not purely ornamental. Fruit and vegetables are grown here too. Once upon a time, the whole space within this walled garden was dedicated to producing fruit and veg. In bygone centuries, it would have fed the many residents of the castle. The kitchen garden is managed organically. It provides a seasonal box to the Duke and Duchess every Friday. And by the look of things, the bees more than did their job in the glasshouse earlier in the year. And there'll be peaches galore on the menu very soon. Historically, cut flowers were a luxury, and many grand homes incorporated a cut flower garden within their kitchen garden. The cutting garden is a beauty in itself during the summer, a perfect location for a final catch-up with Martin.
So, Martin, this side of the garden is quite a productive area, isn't it? Fruit and veg and cut flowers.
Cut flowers, yeah, it's a fantastic part of the garden. This area is mostly for posies, for the castle bedrooms.
Yeah.
And then we have the beautiful lavender here.
Yeah.
And
so does all that get cut?
A lot of this
used.
gets cut, but it's also being used by the bees because we've just got beehives, which is fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant.
But yeah, that also gets used and probably hung up in the kitchen. But then the alliums also go up. So the whole garden here really is used as a cut flower garden,
Right.
which is beautiful.
Well, it's absolutely gorgeous. And this lovely plant here, I know it's a bit of a speciality, isn't
We're
it?
talking about a song, and it's "Oh Sweet Pea, Won't You Marry Me?"
It's a very nice thought, but I think we're both married
We're both
already.
married, we'll be in trouble. Yeah, no, I mean, they're beautiful. Sweet peas are one of my favourite plants.
Yeah.
And the more you cut them, the more they flower.
Yes.
And so they just keep giving. One tip I do is we grow these on so they're ready to plant.
Yeah.
But in between the plantlets, when I plant them, I put a seed direct into the soil.
Right.
And that gives you a lot longer flowering.
That's a fabulous idea. I'm going to try that. Because they run out of steam, don't they?
Just getting that extended flowering period. If you don't constantly pick them, they just go to seed. And then, of course, you lose out on these beautiful flowers.
Lovely.
It only takes minutes to do a posy. And, I mean, sweet peas with a little bit of alchemilla, I mean, it's charming.
Oh, look at that.
Despite looking like it's always been here, much in this garden has altered over the years. It's a place of constant evolution.
The worst thing you can do in a garden is to lay back and everything thinks things are going to happen.
Yes.
So we've all worked incredibly hard.
But it wouldn't work, Martin, if it wasn't for your imagination and your creative flair and your energy.
Oh, I think sometimes I need to keep a hold on it, but I do love creativity, and I would say we're a garden which looks to the future, and that's what I love.
We're all longing to see what's going to happen next because we know there'll be much, much more.
Oh, there's always something. Yeah,
But thank you so much.
Oh, it's a
Martin.
pleasure.
Oh, look at that.
Despite looking like it's always been here, much in this garden has altered over the years. It's a place of constant evolution.
But it wouldn't work if it wasn't for your imagination, your creative flair and your energy. Longing to see what's going to happen next. Thank you so much.
I'm rounding off my year here in perhaps the most tranquil corner of the grounds, the White Garden. Created by the Duchess of Norfolk in 1998, it entices you in with a romantic vision of white and a profusion of scented blooms.
This calm and beautiful White Garden is adjacent to the Fitzallen Chapel, the burial place of the Dukes of Norfolk. And it has that lovely, tranquil, restful sort of air about it. White gardens are quite a tradition in English gardening history. Everything in here has white flowers, except when you take a closer look. No two flowers have the same white in their flowers. Some of them, like some of these roses, have a hint of creamy yellow. And though all the flowers are white, what really melds this whole garden together is the fact that everything has green leaves. If you're choosing to plant a one-colour garden yourself, then it's a really good idea to consider the kind of greens you're going to put in there, but also the sort of texture you're creating, the kind of forms you're going to use. Some shrubs, perhaps, some tall perennials, and then shorter plants too. And these white roses will be making their presence felt right the way through the summer. They're beautifully scented, and it must be one of the most tranquil places you can imagine.
And after visiting throughout the year, there's a lot to contemplate. It's almost time for me to leave the gardens to the crowds of summer visitors, intent on admiring the many things of interest.
Its popularity is a testament to the hard work and creativity of all the people involved and to the vision of its head gardener. What a wonderful legacy for us all to enjoy. That's what makes Arundel Castle a great British garden.